Welcome. It's nice to have you here. So let's start with the intention. So the overall intention for this meeting, as usual, is self-realization. And don't let that put you off, because self-realization means to know yourself, means self-mastery. It means to know yourself as peace, abundance, happiness, clarity, joy, freedom. So it's really the fulfillment, the total fulfillment of all desire. And in order to discover that self-realization, we need to be very truthful with ourselves. And we need to recognize that we are complete beings, that nothing can be denied or shut out. And so we want to stop playing that unnecessary and painful game with ourselves to try and shut out aspects of ourselves, to deny aspects of ourselves, because it just really doesn't work. So we have desires, we need to fulfill those desires, and all desires actually need to be fulfilled. That's just the truth. So some people have the wrong notion that it is possible and desirable to suppress or deny desires. And what that effectively does is it creates a kind of energetic or spiritual constipation. So if you've been trying to do that and you feel not so great, that's the reason why. So when I say that all desire needs to be fulfilled, I do not mean that we need to manifest the fulfillment of all desires at the worldly plane of existence, because we have so many desires. And most of those desires are borrowed. They're not really authentically ours. So it would be foolish, very difficult, and very, very, very time consuming to try and fulfill all desires at a manifest level. But we do need to fulfill them. So we need to approach that intelligently. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how to do that today. So what I do want to talk about today, the overarching topic for today, should we actually get to that point, will be change your frequency, change your life. So a lot of people talk about changing your frequency, and I don't know that it's always clear how to do that or what it even means. So I would like to cover that and give you some practical steps about how to do that and what that really means so that you can actually change your frequency and change your life. But in order to do that, you need to provide the context, which is what I'm starting to do now, to explain that the overall goal here is self-realization, which is total fulfillment. It's to know that you already are that which you seek. See, that's the big secret, right? You think we start out thinking we want certain things. You know, we want the house, we want the relationship, we want the car, we want the job, we want the money, we want the better health, we want the this, that, and the other. And we get those things, and that's fine and good, because there are no real shortcuts here. So you have to take step by step. You have to start where you are. It's always very important. If you're trying to start somewhere else, it's never going to work. But as we fulfill some of those desires, we realize, well, maybe there was something underneath that, right? Something that's a little bit more closer to home. It's like, I thought I wanted the relationship, but actually what I wanted was the relationship with myself, right? I wanted to actually know love, harmony, and peace within myself. I thought I wanted the money. What I really wanted is the true abundance and security within myself. So step by step, we go through this journey, and then eventually we discover that all along, sort of like what's her name? The Wizard of Oz. I can't. Her name is eluding me. The character in the Wizard of Oz. She's Dorothy. You know, the punchline at the end is it was always within her. Well, that's the big punchline always. It's always within you. You seek that which you already are, but you've projected it outward. You seek the abundance because you already are that abundance. You couldn't seek it. You couldn't even know about it if it wasn't already true of you. So that's the total fulfillment. That's the self-realization, is to realize that that which I seek is already here fulfilled within me. But like I say, there are no shortcuts. You can't just snap your fingers and make that happen without going through the necessary steps for you, because you set up the journey for you. It's your journey. It's your perfect journey. It's your story. You set it up because you wanted it. You wanted to have this story. You wanted to know about yourself in this particular way. So you set it up. You said, whatever your thing is in this life, I want to know about love. And so I set it up so that I'm learning through this journey of starting with a sense of unworthiness or unlovability or separation or whatever it is. So we have to take that journey, and we have to thereby accept and understand that it's important to fulfill our desires. It's not bad. It's the way. Because again, the ultimate desire is to know yourself. And that's definitely not bad. Uh, that's the big deal of all of the spiritual traditions, is to know yourself. That's the fundamental desire. That's the best desire. That's the most important desire. That is the desire that gives the payoff, right? What we're promised is that, who are you really? Sat Chit Ananda. What does that mean? It means truth, consciousness, bliss. You want to know that. It's not enough just to have that theoretical knowledge. You actually want to know that directly. Well, in order to have that experience, you have to go through this journey. You have to start out with a setup, a kind of false setup of separation, in order to realize yourself as that. So you set up a particular pathway for yourself, and you have to go through those steps in order to have the payoff, the the conclusion, the fulfillment, the climax of your story. And that's why I say, again, the desires are not bad. You have to fulfill all of them. But as I said, you don't have to fulfill all of them at the manifest level, just those which are true for you. Because again, most of those desires are borrowed. You don't want most of those things. Most of the things that you think you want are just because your parents told you that, or your neighbors told you that, or your spouse told you that, or your children told you that, or a teacher told you that, or the television told you that, or Facebook told you that, or whatever. Okay, somehow you inherited these notions about what is desirable, what you should want, who you should be, right? You should be successful, and success looks like this particular thing. A classic example is the person who's groomed to be a doctor by their parents. But if that's not true for them, they'll never find fulfillment there. They might, in an odd, indirect, roundabout way, because they realize after 20 years of being the doctor that they don't really want to be, that they quit that and go seek their bliss somewhere else. But the sooner that we can fulfill the desires that are not ours, simply by realizing they're not ours and thereby letting them go, that is a true fulfillment, right? If it's not yours, to realize it's not yours and let it go, that is a fulfillment. So the sooner you can do that, the better, which is why I advocate, get clear on what you want, then have the courage to let go of everything else. Because again, if it's not true for you, you're wasting your time. You have a particular journey, a particular path that is yours. Nobody else's is your path. There may be certain overlaps, right? And here's a secret, is that everybody who's here, whether you're live or you're listening to this on YouTube, there's an overlap in our paths. Okay. That's why you're here, because I'm sharing something with you that's actually ultimately coming from yourself to yourself, revealing something to you about your path. So there can be overlap, but ultimately the outer teacher manifests as a reflection of the inner teacher until it brings you close enough to realizing that the inner teacher is the true teacher. And then that takes over. Okay. So the outer is pointing you to the inner, and then eventually you realize, oh, this is my path. This is my story, my journey. I have to trust this. This is the only thing that's trustworthy. That's why ultimately you always have to test everything against that inner knowing. So your path is yours. It's unique to you, and it's revealed to you ultimately from within, but along the way, there are pointers reflecting to you from outside. Now, as I say, I advocate for getting clear on what you want because that's about your path. So how sometimes people want to know, how do I do that? How do I know what I want? Well, as I often say, and remember, this is all just sort of the setup. I have to give the context for anything else to make sense. You can help yourself best by getting clear about what hurts the most. Because remember, I said that you set all this up. You set all this up because you wanted to know yourself in a particular way. You ultimately, you are consciousness, pure consciousness, which is oneness. Okay. But you wanted to know yourself in a unique, in a very specific way. So you set it up this way with your life, with your experience. And so what hurts you the most is revealing to you exactly where you need to look, because that reveals your path to the fulfillment of your true desire. What do I mean by that? So if what hurts you the most is relationship, like you've just been heartbroken and you feel closed off, but you desperately want to connect with somebody, I'm just giving a hypothetical example, then guess what? That tells you something about your true desire because it hurts you, because it's bothering you all the time, because that's just what's on your mind all the time. And you keep coming back to it no matter what else you try. You try all these other things, but you just keep coming back to this. So that tells you something about your true desire. Now, somebody might say, well, could I have multiple true desires? Sure. Everybody's a little different. Some people, they've only got one. Other people, they've got two. Other people, they've got three. Okay. It usually doesn't come down to more than that, because once you get clear enough on it, you realize that it's kind of just about, it's about it's about relationship, it's about health, and it's about we can call your creative expression or your sense of abundance. Okay. So those would be the kind of three main things. And of course, they look like different things at different times, but they kind of come down to just those three things. And then ultimately, all three of those things just come back down to one thing, which is to know yourself. But remember, there's no shortcut. You have to follow your path. Because the things that are hurting you are pointing out to you what you most want, and they're revealing to you exactly what's in the way, right? So you set up some obstacles because these are the things that you want to learn. You want to learn, using this example of relationships. You want to say, I want to know what love really is. What is love? I don't understand it. So you set up this particular path so that you can learn about the truth of love. So you have to fulfill these desires, the ones that are truly yours. The ones that are not yours, fulfill them quickly, burn them like that through the power of awareness. So awareness is key, it's essential. You have to be aware of yourself. So be aware of what do you want, and then be aware of if it's truly what you want. And if it's not what you want, then that awareness burns that desire, fulfills it. That's the power of awareness. When you realize that it's not yours, that awareness resolves the desire. So that's the power. So that exercise of getting clear about what's really yours is really helpful, tremendously helpful. That will improve your life very dramatically, very quickly, because you can then just release so much of the unnecessary stuff that's pulling at your energy and your for your vying for your attention so much of the time. Because think about how much of the day is your attention going to all these different things. And if your attention is going to different things, then your energy is going to those things, which means you're kind of getting depleted. But how much are you benefiting from that? Well, if your attention is going to things that you don't really truly want, then you're not benefiting at all, which is why you want to get clear that that's not yours, burn it through that power of awareness, then you're liberated from it. So now your energy, meaning your attention, is only going to those things that actually matter to you. So hopefully that's clear how powerful that is. So you owe it to yourself to do that exercise regularly, daily. What truly do I want? And again, you look at that in terms of what hurts you the most, what's bothering you. So for other people, it shows up as money. It's like, oh, I'm always stressed about money. Where's the money? How am I going to pay the bills? If you're waking up in the middle of the night worrying about money, then there you go. So you need to give attention to that. And you need to let go of the other things that are not like that. So that's the power. Again, you get clear on what really matters to you. Then you know where to put your attention. Now, once you've done that, you've figured out what's hurting you. Therefore, you need to turn that into it's positive. Okay. So everything in the manifest is polarized. Everything exists as a opposite of what it is not. That's the definition of all things, is what it is not. Like day, night. Day only has any meaning in relationship to night, which is what it is not. Night only has meaning in relationship to day, which is what night is not. Good, bad, similar thing, right? Good only means something because it's not bad. Bad only means something because it's not good. So this is true of all things. They exist as polar opposites. So whatever it is that's hurting you, then that is what you want in its opposite. Okay, so your true desire is the opposite of whatever is hurting you. So if you're hurt by feelings of lack, then what you truly want is abundance. If you're hurt by a sense of unworthiness, what you truly want is love. And this is a bit intuitive. Don't get hung up thinking, is there some chart somewhere where I can look it up and see what's the opposite of whatever I don't want? It's like I say, it's intuitive. So trust the intuitive guidance from within. It's really, really important in this path that you learn to trust the intuitive guidance, because remember what I said, the true teacher is within. The true teacher is your true self. So yes, it's true that the true teacher can manifest as Google if you needed to, but don't depend on Google, okay? Or decrease your dependence on Google as much as possible, because you're wanting to bring your attention more and more within, because within is the cause, within is where the truth resides. When you're putting your attention outward, you have less leverage, you're weakening yourself. You're you're dispersing your energy too much. So you're too scattered then. Better to bring it more and more within. So practice trusting your intuition on things. Don't reach to Google so quickly, or whatever other thing you rely upon, YouTube or whatever, right? Look within and learn to trust that inner guidance on things. So ask the question of yourself, what is the opposite of this thing that's hurting me the most? And just be willing to trust that intuitive answer that you get. So now you know what it is that you do want. Now what you need to do is you need to put your attention on that. So again, this is all kind of just the context. This is a lot of review. So if you've been here before, this is not entirely new stuff. but it's really helpful to be reminded of it, because otherwise um, we tend to complicate things unnecessarily. So it's helpful to keep things simple, just to see that ultimately this is all a game in consciousness of knowing yourself, realizing yourself. You are already consciousness, but you've created this game because you want to know yourself in a particular way. Somewhere somebody says, "Oh, this seems like a terrible game, and I don't like it," and then why comes up, but that's not helpful. So just do yourself a favor and let go of that, and just accept that this is right. You notice that this is happening. So rather than asking why in that way, it's better, more effective, much more helpful, and much quicker, much more expedient. If you're serious about wanting to get to the Satchitananda, to the realization of your truth as bliss, much faster if you just drop all of that and instead you just focus on what I'm suggesting to you here, which is you say, okay, so I am consciousness and I'm wanting to know myself in a particular way, and I've set this all up in this dream for that purpose. Now, I have all these desires. The desires are avenues by which it's possible to arrive somewhere, right? So they are pathways. Many of those desires are not leading to where I want to go. They're leading somewhere else. Okay, those are not my paths. They're not my truth, not my desires. So I need to fulfill them through burning them in awareness, just by realizing they're not mine. Then what remains are those that are mine. Okay, and those are going to lead me to where I want to go, which is to self-realization, fulfillment, peace, happiness. So those are good. They're only good. So don't ever waste your time believing that they're bad. They're good because they're pathways to the fulfillment of your one true desire, which is to know yourself. And you can think about it like, if you're like, pathways can branch off, right? So you've in your journey, you ventured somewhere and you're wanting to go back home. So maybe you're off on some little path somewhere, and that path looks like, I want the sports car. And if that's true for you, it's not true for most people. But if it's really truly true for you, then you need to do that, because that's the path that's going to lead you there. Okay, that's the path that's going to lead you. You get the sports car, then it leads you to the realization that it's inner abundance that you're really wanting. So now you're on the more of a bigger path that you've connected into because you fulfilled that desire. Then you're focused on that inner abundance. You realize that inner abundance, and then you realize ultimately that inner abundance is emanating from the source, which is you, which is consciousness. Then you realize that, and you realize you're already true fulfillment, totality, wholeness, complete bliss. So hopefully that's clear how that works. So your true desires are good. You must fulfill them. Otherwise, you're just going to be spinning round and round and round in suffering, denying the truth, which is that you have desire and you need to fulfill it. That's why it nags at you. So now we've got a basic process. We've defined what are one, that true desire is good. We should fulfill it. And we start to have some clarity on how to do that. So we figure out what our true desire is through what it is that hurts us, find out what's the opposite of that. Now we need to put our attention on that which we want. Normally, we've been very practiced at putting our attention on what we don't want. See, that's true, right? You put your attention on what you don't want habitually. And of course, you get more of it as a result, because there's a law. Whatever you put your attention on, that's where the energy goes. So it grows. You get more and more of it. That's why I say, don't think about a purple zebra. But you have to think about a purple zebra. It's impossible to not think about a purple zebra if I've told you not to think about a purple zebra. You first have to think about it and then try not to think about it, but it's too late. So we're practiced at putting our attention on what we don't want. We get more and more of it. Even when we say, I don't want it, we're still putting our attention on it, right? I don't want to be in debt. I don't want to be in debt. I don't want to be in debt. But you're putting your attention on the debt. I don't want to have relationship problems. I don't want to have relationship problems. I don't want to have relationship problems, but you're just putting your attention on the relationship problem. So that's why we have to see that thing which is hurting us, we're accustomed to putting our attention on it in the negative, saying, I don't want it. And then in our ignorance, we, cross our fingers and hope that that's going to make it go away. But what you resist persists, right? Because the resistance is still putting attention on it, which means that it gets the energy, so it grows. Well, this seems like somewhat bad news if you're understanding, if you're following so far, because you see, you're in the habit of putting your attention on what you don't want, which means every time you try to, even right away when you realize, okay, this is great, now I know what I do want. If I've been putting my attention on lack, what I want is abundance. So I'm going to put my attention on abundance. But guess what happens? Your attention slides right over to lack. Why? Because of the habit. Because lack and abundance are a polarity. So they're connected. They're really one and the same. They can't ever be separated. It's an artificial division that's made totally through the power of Maya. It's a hypnotic effect. But therefore, necessarily, whenever you put your attention on either pole, your attention is going to tend to slide to the pole that you're most habituated toward. And this is where it seems like bad news, because you say, well, how am I ever going to get out of this mess? Right? I want the abundance, but all I do is put my attention on lack. How am I going to get out of the lack and into the abundance? Well, there's a way. And this has to do with change your frequency, change your life. So I'll get to there in a moment. But the first thing I want to say is that 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 there are two things that are going to empower the change that you want. Okay, so it is true, like I said, that the habit is strong, and therefore your attention is going to tend to go to what you're practiced at, the thing that you don't want. So, but don't lose heart, because what happens is a lot of people, they give up at that point. They say, oh, well, it's too hard. I'll never succeed. Right? They get this far and then they give up. This is it's a miracle in and of itself that anybody gets this far. It's an absolute miracle. And so it's very helpful if you can acknowledge that. You can say, look, I've been living in such ignorance, and somehow through a miracle, this knowledge has come to me. And not only has it come to me, but I've actually received it. It's clicked. It's making sense within me. And I'm willing to put it into practice. So miracle upon miracle is occurring. So acknowledge that, because that acknowledgement will start a virtuous cycle. So the acknowledgement of the miracle is very, very powerful. So do that. Help yourself by acknowledging the miracle. Just like this right now is a miracle. The fact that you are here right now is a miracle. I mean, on all levels. Like the fact that life is occurring, that this dream, that the waking state is occurring, the fact that consciousness is manifesting as this is a miracle, because how could it possibly be happening? And yet it is. So that's a miracle. The fact that all of this is happening, I mean, it's infinity within infinity. Think about that. That all electrons everywhere are spinning absolutely perfectly, because if they weren't, this would not be happening. So that's a miracle. And that all of that is happening, allowing this experience right now, another miracle. Your heart is beating, that's a miracle. Okay. Your brain is working, that's a miracle. And somehow you ended up here. It's a miracle. Just tell the truth about it. I mean, how else could this have happened other than by miracle? Because you didn't plan this. I mean, sure, you might say, oh, I planned to show up at this meeting, but you didn't plan to know about this meeting. At some point, you learned about it. That occurrence of you learning about it is a miracle. And then not only did you learn about it, but something within you said, yes, that's another miracle. So when you start to see that these are all miracles, and not only all that, but you've stuck around. I mean, because let's face it, this is all kind of weird. Weird looking guy, weird looking location, weird stuff coming through. It's all pretty weird. And yet somehow you're here and it's making sense. So in some way, it's making enough sense on some level that you're still here. So that's another miracle. So acknowledge the miracles is going to help a lot, because it helps you to realize that, again, it's all inner guidance. It's all the inner teacher. It's just the inner teacher uses all means necessary. The inner teacher, because remember, this is all consciousness and you are that consciousness. So everything is possible. I mean, when you dream at night, you can dream anything. Well, this is no different than that. So consciousness, which is the true teacher, is using all of this in whatever way is necessary in order to make itself known. Because that's its desire, is to know itself. So it has to make itself known to itself, which is you. Okay, so that's the first thing, is to acknowledge the miracles, because it starts this virtuous cycle. It puts you into a place of true receptivity to yourself, because there's a kind of hardness that's developed through the repetition, the habit of what's not wanted. And so in order to soften that and be able to make that shift, the acknowledgement of the miracles does that. It's like it starts to soften everything a little bit. It opens everything a little bit. So you start to be more receptive to something different. So now there are two ways in which these habits get established. So the habit, meaning the habit of what it is that is appearing in consciousness, because it's all really just habit. Anything that you think is a thing is really just a habit. Take anything, like water. Okay, what is water? It's just a habit. We've just all said water, 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 and it's a habit. Otherwise, you don't know what this is. There's nothing here, in fact. I mean, you could say it's energy or consciousness, but there's no water. Water is just a habit. Maybe that seems too far out, but it's true. So everything is a habit. What you don't like is a habit. What you do like is a habit. What you want is to establish more of the habit of what you do want and less of the habit of what you don't want. So right now, you've identified the habit of what you don't want. Hopefully you've identified at least one habit of what you don't want. And then you found out what is its complement, right? Its polar opposite. That's what you do want. So in the example that I've given multiple examples. One example that I've given is you identify that what I don't want is lack, because that's what's hurting me. Therefore, what I do want is abundance. So we've got this polarity, lack and abundance. And the habit is, the well-established habit is lack. So you look around, you perceive lack. Within you feel lack. You think lack. You taste lack. You smell lack. Everything is lack, 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 lack. That's a habit, because all of this is consciousness. It's energy. Okay. It's not lack. Lack is the overlay through habit. Because it's hardened, it seems like it's actually a thing. It seems like lack is a thing, and you've got lots of evidence for that. The substance of that is all of your memories that give credence to that. They say, no, look, I'm in debt by $40,000, and I've got a bill that I don't know how I'm going to pay, and I lost money last week, and whatever. You've got all the so-called evidence of lack. But again, it's just habit. I mean, because if you tell the truth, all of the evidence is in your mind. It's all just mental stuff, stories that you tell yourself. And yes, I understand that you might actually say, well, look, I can produce the physical bill, the piece of paper, or whatever it might be. But at a deeper level, that's also just a story that you're telling. And so all of that is just mental stuff, but it's been repeated so often that it has become hardened, so that it appears to be solid. And this is the trick that mind is playing, is that we think that we become convinced that the thing is real and objective because it's been hardened either through repetition, so that's one way that the habit gets formed, or through intensity. Okay, and so the intensity has to do with the emotion, we'll say. This is why people talk a lot about trauma these days. And trauma could happen through repetition, but oftentimes when people are talking about trauma, not always, we'll say sometimes when people are talking about trauma, what they're talking about are these sudden things that happen with a lot of charge. Often like PTSD. When people talk about PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, they're talking usually, oftentimes, about some event that happened, and so there was such a high level of charge to it, usually with a negative spin, that then that becomes a new habit, becomes a strong impression. So now it's repeated over and over and over as though that's the truth, as though that's the reality. So these are the two ways that habits are formed. One is through repetition, the other one is through the intensity of the emotional charge. With this knowledge, we have the ability to produce change. Okay, so repetition is obviously one way that we can use to our advantage. And it doesn't, at least today, I'm not going to go into a lot of depth on repetition because in some ways it's self-evident. If you just keep putting your attention on what you do want, eventually that will become the new habit. And that's just the truth. So if you persist long enough in putting your attention on what you do want, if you just every day you write down, in this example, I'm saying you struggle with lack, you want abundance. If you write down your statement, I am living abundance, money, opportunities, and wealth of all kinds flow to me and through me um, daily in miraculous ways. I'm blessed and grateful. Okay, you write that down, something to that effect. I mean, it has to be your words, but something that's true, that's evocative for you of the feeling of abundance. Then you read that 3 times a day, every day. If you persist in that sincerely, eventually the change has to happen. Has to happen. Absolutely has to happen. There's no way around it. Now, the question is, how long will that take? And that's going to depend. It depends on a lot of factors. Depends how hardened the old habit of lack is. It depends how many limiting beliefs you have around it, how quickly you clear those limiting beliefs. Depends on a lot of other factors. So that's why I'm saying I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on that particular thing today, because it's, like I say, it's sort of self-evident. But what I do want to talk about is this business of changing your frequency, because the emotional charge that is associated with the habit is something that if and when we change that, this can greatly enhance and quicken the results of fulfilling our desire. So if you have a habit of, again, we'll use the example of lack. You have a habit of lack, then what we're really talking about there is it's a frequency. So everything is energy. And when I say everything is energy, let me just take a step back so this is clear. So when you dream at night, that dream is entirely consciousness. I hope that that's clear to you, right? When you wake up from the dream, there's no residue out there of the dream because the dream was only consciousness within you. So everything that the dream, all the substance of the dream is only consciousness. So if you are dreaming of a dream, whatever your dream universe is, right? That whole dream universe and all the people and places and events and everything, all of that is consciousness. Hopefully that's clear. So the same is true now of the waking state. The waking state is exactly the same. I point this out because people often are so hung up on viewing the waking state as somehow objective and external to them because they view themselves and identify so strongly with their body mind, which has a space, a point. It's a point in space time. They identify so strongly with that it makes it difficult for them to see how it is that they actually have the ability to change their life. But when you can take a step back and realize that just like the dream, this too is composed only of consciousness, and you are that consciousness. So that means this body is consciousness. You are not this body. You are consciousness dreaming this body, identifying with this point in consciousness in the dream. This whole dream universe is consciousness dreaming. Okay. So I point this out because then we can start to see that all of the phenomenal reality, all of it is composed of what? Subjective. It's all subjective phenomena, meaning that everything that you know, everything that you experience, everything that you come into contact with, you actually come into contact only with through your subjective senses and your thoughts, right? Like, how do you know about anything? It's only because you see it, taste it, touch it, smell it, whatever the other thing is, hear it, and think about it. So those are the only ways that you come into contact with anything. Like right now, your mind might say, oh yeah, but there's that guy over there in that video. But where is that guy over there in the video? Where is over there? Over there is known only subjectively here. It's just an idea of over there that's being perceived because there's a projection of 3 dimensions. But actually what's being experienced is what? Just light, sound, whatever you would call the tactile sense. Okay, but these and thought, etc. All of those are really just energy. We can measure them as energy. They all are frequency, right? It's all energy, and that energy is vibrating at a particular frequency. So red, the color, the color red is vibrating. It's energy vibrating at a particular spectrum of frequency, right? Blue, green, yellow, they're all just different frequencies, meaning the vibration is happening faster or slower. The same with sound. What makes a one pitch different from another? It's the frequency with which it's vibrating. Everything is like that. The thoughts, right? Your thought waves can be measured as frequency. So everything is frequency. Everything is energy vibrating with different frequencies. So now that means that lack is a frequency, abundance is a frequency. Now, what keeps that frequency? What keeps your attention stuck on a particular frequency of lack? In this example, it could be whatever. It's either just through repetition, or it's because of the intensity of the emotion. And I'll actually suggest that ultimately it's only about the intensity of the emotion, because with enough repetition, there's an intensity, there's a charge that's built up that forms an attachment, which we could call an emotion. So here's the key to the whole thing, is the emotion and the intensity of that emotion. And that emotion is also a frequency. It's all just energy. So the energy is, in a sense, it's homogeneous, it's neutral. It's not good nor bad. It's not this nor that. It's only turned into that because we grab onto it through a particular frequency. So if you don't like it, you want to change it. So notice that if you struggle with lack, what's the emotion that you have connected with that? We could call it fear. You could call it whatever, it doesn't matter, but whatever you call it, notice that you don't like it. It feels bad to you. But there's a strong charge there. That is what is actually pulling your attention to it, because that emotion is paired with that frequency of lack in this example. You can use this with whatever your thing is. It doesn't have to be lack. I'm just using lack as an example. Okay, so see that it's the emotion and the intensity of the emotion that draws your attention there. Because if you weren't afraid, you would not give attention to that. Can you see that that's true? If you were not afraid of lack, you wouldn't give your attention to it because it's no good. It's not interesting at all. Who wants lack? The only reason that lack exists is because it has to exist in contrast to abundance. Abundance is the positive it's the positive pole. Lack is the negative pole. That doesn't make it good or bad in some absolute sense, because good and bad are also just another polarity. But we can just see that all polarities have a positive and negative, and we actually have a preference for the positive versus the negative. Again, that's not saying that negative is bad in some absolute sense. It's just saying that that's the nature of all things, is that they exist in these polar opposites. So it has to be that of all polarizations, we have a preference for one and not the other, but the other has to exist for the other to exist, because they can only exist relative to one another. So we wanted to know abundance, but in order to know abundance, there has to be lack. But the problem is we've attached to lack because we have this strong emotional charge that's associated with lack. And so it just keeps sucking our attention over there. So we just keep giving more and more energy to it. So we keep experiencing that as real. We say, look, it's objectively so, but it's not objectively so. Objectively so is only a projection of your subjective reality. There is no independent objective anything, because the objective is only the polar opposite of the subjective. When we put our attention on the objective, we usually feel bad. What we want is to keep our attention on the subjective, because that's what's going to empower us to then reorganize things so that we can feel consistently good. So now we've identified in this example, I have a tendency to put my attention on lack. I don't want to do that. I feel bad when I do that. Why do I keep doing it? Well, because I've paired this strongly charged negative emotion with it. And so my attention just keeps getting sucked over there. Well, now, well, put all this together, and hopefully this will make sense. That it's all just energy. We have the ability to change the frequency. Now, again, I know that people sometimes talk about this, talk about changing your frequency, but then you say, well, great, but how do I do that? Well, I'm going to explain that to you. So you first want to realize that it's all just energy. That's why I'm saying that over and over and over. See that it's all just energy. You can change the frequency through which you are experiencing or expressing that energy, and you get a different so-called objective outcome. It's all light is energy. It doesn't matter whether it's expressed as blue, red, green, orange, yellow, or whatever. It's all energy. The difference is only the frequency with which it's vibrating. You can change that. I haven't told you how yet, but I'm just pointing out that you can change it, because you have to understand it's all energy. So when you have this strong negatively charged emotion that's pulling your attention to what you don't want, clearly you want to change that frequency. So fear, you want to change. Every time that you're experiencing fear, what do you want? You want to experience, call it what you want, peace, security, freedom, happiness, oneness, whatever you want to call it. I don't care. See, it's your business, because it's up to you. It's subjective. So remember, you have to trust your intuitive guidance on this. I'm just pointing out something to you. Now, you notice though that your attention goes to that negatively, that negative emotional charge. You want to free it from that frequency. So the strength of the charge, it just indicates how much energy, right? It's just like the amplitude. But the frequency is what determines what you perceive it as. You're perceiving it as fear. So how are you going to change this? Well, number one, you want to release it, dissolve it back into its neutral state, just energy. Liberate it from that frequency. How do you do that? Relax deeply. So the thing about this is that that habit of that particular perceiving that particular frequency, in this example, fear, is sustained because it's happening unconsciously, and it hijacks your whole system. Okay, so your thoughts are hijacked, your mental images are hijacked, your physicality is hijacked. You get tense, your breathing changes. This is just by definition, right? Fear, the experience of fear, is synonymous with those changes. If you're totally relaxed and you're not thinking anything fearful, then you're not experiencing fear by definition. When you're experiencing fear, your whole system is hijacked to produce that state, causes your whole system, to sympathetically resonate with the same frequency as fear. So you want to change that. You can change that by relaxing. So this is like a yogic secret. Okay, this is what the yogis do. This is how they do it. They've learned that it's possible to relax very deeply, and that all systems are interconnected. Everything is happening simultaneously. And if you produce a change anywhere in that, then you change the whole thing. So a very powerful way to do this is to notice your breathing. Because remember, I said everything is hijacked by fear, by whatever the state is. But I'm using fear in this example. So everything is hijacked by fear. So your breathing necessarily has to change. When your breathing is neutralized, the fear has to dissipate. The energy is released. That frequency is no longer the vehicle through which that energy is expressing. So the intensity might remain, but the frequency is no longer there. So again, how do you do that? Well, there are many ways, but I'm suggesting right now, the breath is one very powerful way. You just notice the breathing, because awareness is the agent of change. You have to be aware, otherwise the change won't happen. So just notice your breathing. So you could try this out right now. You could think about something think about some minor stressor. Don't think about a big one, just a minor stressor. And notice that in order to experience that stressor as stressful, your whole system has to be hijacked. But then notice your breathing. Let your breathing just be totally relaxed and natural. Don't try to breathe in any particular way. Just let your breathing be relaxed and natural. And in order to do that, of course, you have to be very aware. You have to be so aware that you're aware of every attempt to change your breathing, even in very subtle ways. And you keep relaxing all of those impulses, so that you're just allowing the natural, spontaneous breath, because nature knows exactly how to produce perfect balance. And if allowed to do so, will do so always. Now, the breath is probably the most accessible and reliable and powerful means to do this, but you can do this in any way. So don't feel limited to that. You could notice yourself energetically. Okay, if you're sensitive to yourself energetically, and you could notice where the energy is bound up. And you could, through your intention, just allow the energy to relax, to harmonize. Again, it's only if you're sensitive energetically. Otherwise, that doesn't make any sense to you. But if you are sensitive energetically, then you can do something with that. So that can be another helpful way in order to change your frequency. So in this case, all we're doing is we're changing the frequency by dissolving that frequency. So the energy is here, but we're dissolving it. So it's neutralized. That frequency is no longer there. But the same energy remains in potential. So again, you might feel intensity, but there's a difference between intensity and a particular state, right? So intensity does not mean fear. It just means intensity. Fear means a particular frequency that your system has been hijacked by, that you're resonating with. And you can change that by intervening anywhere that you can be aware of. So you can also do this at a thought level, right? This is sometimes more accessible for some people, sometimes less accessible. It just depends on your constitution. But it has some challenges, but you could do it, right? You could just notice what your thinking is doing, and you could just let the thoughts dissolve. And often very much connected with that would be your imaginative faculties, which again are also being hijacked by fear, producing all kinds of fearful triggering images. So if you're visually oriented, then you might notice that. And maybe you could then learn to relax and dissolve that. These are all skills that you can enhance, become more skilled at through practice. So you might find one to be easier than another. I would suggest that you probably just go with that one at first because it's easier to further develop a skill that you've already got some proficiency with. But over time, you can work with all of them and find out which ones are easiest for you, and you can work, bring all of them together and get very good results. But the point here is we just dissolve that. So now we're more at a neutral state. Now, it's very challenging to stay in that totally neutral state. Usually because we have desires that we want to fulfill, and the desire is a particular thing, right? So we want to know abundance. We're struggling with lack. We want to know abundance. In the ultimate sense, you want to transcend the polarity, but like I say, you have to start where you are. So you have to tell the truth. If you're not going to be able to just stay in that neutrality, which is actually bliss, then you have to now change your frequency to that which you want. So in this example, you want abundance. So now you have to start to shift your frequency to that of abundance. Well, how can you do that? Well, you want to pair abundance with a positive emotion that you give that strong emotional charge to, right? So you've got this energy that's been liberated. Now you're wanting to, because it's just energy, you can shape it however you want. Shape it into a positive emotional charge. And you just do whatever feels good to you, whatever is the most accessible to you. It could be what you perceive as love, forgiveness, uh, um, compassion, whatever it is for you, or bliss, whatever works for you. But you find what is accessible and available to you, and then you start to invest the energy into that. So practice makes perfect. You just start to put your energy into that, and you can use your imagination to establish that more easily. So remember, in your imagination, you can do whatever you want. doesn't have to conform to your limited ideas about how reality so-called works. Because here, all you're wanting to do is generate that emotion, practice the emotion, and invest the energy into that. It's like you've taken your investment out of something that's not good for you, and you're investing it now into something that is wholesome and good for you. So you're just reinvesting that energy. You need to do that consistently, practice. So the basic process is that you find out what the emotion, the negative emotion is that's associated with what you don't want. That's what keeps drawing your attention there. You need to neutralize that and then reinvest that energy into the positive emotion that you want and pair that with the thing that you desire. Okay. When you do this, it will greatly enhance your ability to shift your experience because you're no longer going to be habitually drawn to that which you don't want. Instead, you can much more easily access what it is that you do want. And then again, the more that you practice that through repetition and now enhanced by the emotional charge, that becomes the new habit. So you start to experience that regularly, effortlessly, unconsciously. You don't have to think about it, it just is. Before, lack was automatic, unconscious. You didn't have to think about it, it just was. You were swimming in a world of lack. Everything was lack for you because it was just the unconscious habit. But you can then make that a new unconscious habit of abundance so that you automatically think abundance, see abundance, feel abundance, hear abundance. Everything is abundance for you. And again, the fast track for that is that you find out what is the negative emotion that is drawing your attention to what you don't want, neutralize that through this process that I've described, which is ultimately awareness, right? But you're aware of how it has hijacked your system and you release your system from that just by relaxing, dissolving, letting go. That's the power of awareness. And it takes practice. So, if you don't feel particularly skilled at it at first, just persist in the practice of it. You will get better at it. And if not, if you have questions about that, feel free to ask me questions about that. I'm happy to answer those questions. Then once you've done that, once you've neutralized that, if you feel that if you still have a desire, right? In this case, I'm using the example of abundance. If you still have a desire to know abundance, which most of the time you will, then invest that energy in a positive emotion that you now pair with what it is that you want. So you first generate that emotion, that positive emotion, love, acceptance, peace, harmony, bliss, freedom, happiness, joy, whatever it is for you. I don't care. Whatever works for you. But just feel it. Feel happy, feel good, feel blissful, and invest all that energy there. Then pair that with what it is that you want. In this example, abundance. So then you say, oh, in my imagination, I am living abundance and I'm experiencing this incredible happiness. Feel that happiness. Pair it with the abundance. I am so abundant. I am so happy. I am so blessed and grateful. So be it. You let it, and then you just let it go, knowing that it is already done because it is done, because you've just experienced it is true. Then just have positive expectation, be expectant, watch for it. You'll see it showing up because it's been established now, at least somewhat, as a new unconscious habit. You might have to repeat it. You might not have to repeat it. But that's the basic process. So hopefully that's clear. So that's it from me today. For those who are here live, I'm happy to stay on for the group coaching, which we'll do in just a moment. And for those who are on YouTube, I just want to make sure that you know how you can follow up with me if you want. So I am still offering free introductory coaching sessions. They are going very quickly. I'm allowing people to book those sessions 2 weeks in advance. And as of now, all of the sessions, available sessions are booked for the next 2 weeks, but tomorrow, more sessions will become available for 2 weeks from now. So you just have to check back day by day You can find out more about that though at joeylott.com/intro, INTRO, and I'll post a link to that in the description on YouTube. Like I say, they're going very quickly. If you, I'm trying to figure out how maybe I could open up more time for that, but haven't figured that out yet. So if you go there and you're not finding any available times, then just keep checking back, and hopefully you will eventually get a time there. The other thing is these meetings are Mondays at 11 a.m. US Eastern Time, and it's another opportunity to have coaching with me during the group coaching session, which follows the talk. So for those who are watching this, who are not live, obviously if you're live, you know about this already, but if you're watching this on YouTube and you would like to join this meeting live so that you can participate in the group coaching, then you're welcome to do that. You can go to my website, joeylott.com, and I'll also post the link to that in the description. And you'll see that there's an opportunity to sign up for my newsletter or whatever. It's an email sign up. And when you sign up there, you'll get an automated email that provides you with all of the details so that you can join these meetings live. I think that's all I have to say about that. One more thing, I guess I'll say this because I know this maybe seems a little bit self-serving, but I've realized that actually it's to serve you, because I know that there are many people who would benefit from having this knowledge provided in a systematic way. So on these Monday meetings, obviously, it's a lot of information getting provided, and it's maybe a little bit challenging to make it actionable because you have to really put it into action in your life. If you don't, it doesn't work for you. Information alone is not that useful. It's only when you put it into practice and get the results that you gain confidence, and that's what's necessary. So if you want to have a daily practice, a daily routine that is absolutely complete, that will support you in establishing all of the necessary habits so that you can get the results that you want in your life, so that you can fulfill your desires and you can know yourself as peace and bliss, then you could go to it's joeylott.com/, I'll have to post the link because I don't remember offhand. I think it's either manifesting-truth or manifesting truth, all one word. I'll post the link in the description. But that is my online course and program that does exactly that. So it's 9 lessons provided, one a week, that helps you to progressively establish a very effective, simple routine in your life that will help you to get these results in the most direct, simplest, efficient way possible. And when you sign up for that, you also get access to the live meetings, coaching meetings on Tuesdays, also at 11 a.m. US Eastern Time, for 9 weeks, which is very powerful for anybody who's wanting to do that. So I'm just providing that information because I know that can be very supportive for people. It is a paid program, but you can check that out if you want. So that's it for now. I'm going to end this recording and then we'll stay on for the group coaching.